Armen Sarkissian, welcome to How the Light Gets In.
Well, pleasure to be here.
You were a politician, but now you think about politics, and your physics background informs to some extent how you think about politics. So one of the great revolutions in physics in the 20th century, quantum mechanics, you're now using some of that framework to think about politics and the politics of small scales, the politics of small states. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're using this kind of framework from physics to talk about politics today?
Well, it's basically you're right and a little bit wrong, because at the end of the day, when I was in science, I was also thinking about many other things, including also about politics as well. And politics worldwide, what was happening and the big changes, because I've seen a lot what you were looking at from abroad, from the West, like Soviet Union, the collapse of Soviet Union, what happened with the Berlin Wall, because I was quite frequent visitor to East Germany, teaching there quantum mechanics or doing research with the Albert Einstein Memorial Institute. So when I was in science, I was thinking about politics. When I was in politics, naturally I was thinking, and I had that sort of a strange feeling from early days in political life, that there are so many things that are common in the material world with the non-material, I mean the human world. I mean, there was initially feelings, thoughts, unorganized. I started thinking more about that and trying to put that in an organized way. Early 2000s, when I was free again, I was doing a lot of advisory work and doing some business. I had my center at Cambridge, but also working with organizations, think tanks, with East West Institute of New York, where I was eventually co-chair, with the World Economic Forum, where I was faculty there, and I was chairing for 3 years Global Energy Security Council, and think about what is common. Because there's one simple thing which is common between science and material science and human behavior. We live and we act according to the laws of nature. Mm-hmm. We think that we are different, but we are not. We are run by the same laws of nature as the material world as well. So I tried then, but a lot of organizations then, even today, like to be politically correct. So there's a common understanding or an answer to a question, and a lot of people don't like when you are saying something which is different. While I was born in Soviet Union, and I didn't care much about, well, I cared when I was a parent that the shops were empty. There was not much to eat, or even it was difficult to travel for ordinary people. But I cared about freedom, and especially freedom of expressing your ideas and expressing things that you think which are different than the sort of a politically correct ones in Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. So I had always that fight, and I took that feeling with me even to the World Economic Forum. So I didn't like when people were saying the things that were commonly accepted, because this is the way I became a scientist, questioning everything and everybody.
So is what's commonly accepted sort of like the classical way of thinking about the world of politics, and you wanted to introduce a new a revolution?
No, I didn't want to introduce anything. I just wanted to understand myself, and if I thought that I understood something, then I probably can share it with someone else. Mm-hmm. And in many cases, what I've learned from science and from physics and from the history of physics, first of all, you have to challenge the fundamental understanding, so the rules. Let's go back more than 100 years time when they first started discovering atoms, elementary particles. How big was the confusion when the laws of His Holiness Isaac Newton didn't work, because the world was run by classical mechanics, and they couldn't understand what was wrong. Mm. In order to understand these giants and great thinkers, like be that Albert Einstein, Heisenberg, or Max Planck, or Paul Dirac and others, had to change. It was not about to find the solution. It was about completely changing the way you were thinking, completely changing your logic, and basically redefining simple things that looked obvious about what is simultaneous, and many other things. You go through physics, you learn that in order to understand things, you have to challenge every and each question, even a basic one.
Yeah.
Is it working or not? So I took that with me into political life, not only political, a general life of our life on this planet, political, economic. And I found that there are so many questions that the classical answers, they don't work. And of course, if we take it right, after the breakdown of Soviet Union, that somebody, and especially in the West, it was announced that this is the end of the history. Fukuyama said that this end of the history, capitalism won and democracy won, everything is fine. This is the end of it. In reality, that was absolutely wrong. I consider that a wrong statement. That was the beginning of the new era. And I call that quantum era, because quantum, in a sense, first, that we have to look at the things differently, completely, fundamentally differently, that we were looking 30, 40 years ago, classically. Secondly, we have to basically develop new philosophy of logic, of looking at things. Third, that's why I am calling it quantum, to make it sure that it's quantum, it's not the classical way they had before. Third, a lot of things that we are now, we are here now because a lot of things were done right or wrong through classical politics. I mean, believing that this is the end of history. So if we just introduce capitalism in Russia or China, eventually they will become democratic. Well, you had to fight for both proper capitalism and real democracy and help those countries through evolutionary process to get it, rather than just saying, okay, we deliver you democracy, you don't have any other choice. Even today, you have to fight for your values in the new. And the final point is a lot of changes that are happening today, they have their origin with quantum mechanics. Because if there was no quantum mechanics, we'd not have satellites traveling to Mars, talking to each other live with Australia, having mobile phones, which has dramatically changed our life. People don't realize they are a part of this new life, which is a quasi-classical life, but they don't realize that even fundamental things have changed. People are buying things, not only shirts, but a Rolls-Royce car on a phone. People are talking live with their friends and family in Australia as if it was natural. We think we are exercising democracy in a classical way. We go every 4 or 5 years to the ballot and vote. In reality, our democracy today is a ballot or voting 10 times a day on your Facebook, and it has huge impact. And this world is becoming also, point number 5, quantum, because there is a rise of small. There is a rise of individual, and among the rise of individual, there is a huge rise of small, especially those small states that are smart.
Yes. I'd like to talk a little bit more about that particular point, your final point about small states. I mean, one of the main arguments you make is that we maybe often, in the classical way of thinking of things, dismiss small states as powerless, as not really having much agency of their own, just depending on the big ones. You say that's wrong. Why is that wrong?
Because we live in a different world. It was right for 500 years ago, it was right 400 years or 300 years, where the world was maybe a big part of the world was feudalic, the other ones were basically regimes of kings and emperors. And then we came to the 20th century. It was still a classical world. The rise of I think our transition into a new world, into quantum world, is giving power not only to individual but the state for a simple reason. I can give you examples. And the examples are the most sort of advanced and also successful states. If you would try to make the table of the most successful states or the most rich states in the world, the first 10, it will not start even with United States or UK or France. It will start with a country like Norway, and you will have Luxembourg, then you will have Switzerland, Singapore, and so on and so forth. You would like to have a list of the top 10 countries in innovation. Again, out of the 10 will be 8 small states. You wondered which countries are running ahead of everybody in electronic government and managing their electronic data, which is the future. Again, out of the 10 will be small states, and the biggest one will be for example, the one of the best will be a tiny state, which is Estonia.
But let me challenge you a little bit on that. So
now let me finish it. It's not finished yet, but that's where we are, and then we are going to enter a world where technology, and especially technology that will come together with artificial intelligence, quantum computing, everything, will allow states, if they are smartly run, to have huge power. If you look at the world, for example, military power is based on many, because a huge economy, number of people, hundreds of millions of people that can create 1 or 2 million of soldiers. Okay, Look at the wars that are happening. One of the first wars of the quantum era, one happened in Armenia, between Armenia and Azerbaijan using drones, and it changed completely the war. Look at Ukraine. Ukraine is several times smaller than Russia, and the fight is more and more about technology.
Yeah, but okay, let me challenge you on this point. So some of the smart states that you mention elsewhere are places like Israel. You've just mentioned Ukraine. Finland is another country. No, I didn't.
Ukraine is not a small state.
Finland is another small country with high innovation and so on. But when it comes to geopolitics, security, military power are paramount. Israel, without the support of the United States, wouldn't be able to necessarily defend itself in the way it has. Ukraine might be using drones, but again, without the funding of the US and Europe, it would have probably been swallowed up by Russia. So technological innovation is all great when it comes to, running the state more efficiently or creating interesting gadgets, growing the economy. Can it really replace the security, military security of big states?
I think I'm misunderstood here. What I was saying. I'm not saying that they have already replaced it, or they will replace in upcoming 5 or 10 years. Not at all. What I'm saying, there is a rise of small but smart states, like Singapore, like the same Israel. I'm not discussing are they good or bad, are they committing or have they committed genocides. But you cannot say that Rwanda or Botswana are not smart states in Africa. What I'm saying is their independence and their power is growing. And if we'll start thinking about the future world security and stability, you cannot avoid integrating small smart states into that. Why? Because if the old world, classical world of competition between United States, the West, and Soviet Union was based on the policies of détente. I can kill you 100 times, you can kill me 100 times. That's why we don't go into big war. The new security architecture will be based that even small states will have huge economic and military powers in order to affect what's happening.
And do you think they won't depend on the big powers? They won't need the protection of the United States, of NATO, of the EU?
No, they will need the partnerships with the small and medium-sized states in order to create the new stable architecture. There will be no world with one pole, be that military. It's the United States today. But tomorrow, China will be trying to get... The world is economically bipolar, tomorrow very propolar and so on. But in the dimension of smartness, new technology, new approaches, I mean, the world will be multipolar. And the big states will need the small states to balance the world's stability. Because generally speaking, small, smart states they need stability. Singapore doesn't need a conflict in the Far East. I'm saying generally, okay? The states, smart states in the Gulf, be that Qatar, Abu Dhabi, they need stability because they are smart enough to use their revenues from gas and oil investing in education, science, artificial intelligence, and so on and so forth.
Someone would say that small smart is just a euphemism for small and rich. You know, technology requires a lot of capital, requires resources.
Not at all.
A lot of the countries you've mentioned
not at all. I think that's
oil and gas. Why not?
No, that's all. Of course not.
Give me an example of a poor...
Where is the oil and the gas? Where is the oil?
Can you give me an example of a poor small state that is smart?
No. Let me start give you examples of the small states. Where is the oil of gas of Israel? The oil of gas of Israel is the people of Israel. It's diaspora, the people that live all over the world. They live also in United States. You were mentioning United States was supporting Israel. Okay, but is United States running Israel today? Maybe it was running Israel. I don't know the answer 30 years ago, but it is Israel run by the United States today. Look what's happening today between Israel and United States. Okay, another example. Where is the wealth in Singapore? In fact, Singapore was an absolutely poor place and a place of a huge conflict between Hindus, Chinese, and Muslims. Someone with a vision, idea, with a smartness, put together a new state which is called Singapore, which is one of the most successful and, as you're referring, richest state. Where is the smartness and richness of a state like Norway? I mean, Norway has oil and gas, but Norway itself is not using that oil and gas because they are smart enough to have all of their energy from hydro and wind, okay? They are smart enough, whatever they sell now, to put in a state fund and so on. So it's all about smartness. It's not about... There are many countries in the world that have, I know at least 2 countries that have more gas than Qatar, but they are not smart.
Can you say a little bit about what you think about smart? What is that term? What is it doing? Does it mean investing wisely? Does it mean having a vision? What does it mean?
No, I will avoid, since we have a couple of minutes, to tell you the definition of smart, okay? Because in this case of human behavior in the quantum world, it's not absolutely defined. And at the end of the day, by telling you many of the intriguing things that I had learned during my journey, I will basically not allow you to read my book. The existing one about the small smart states and the new one which is coming out, which is called Quantum Politics. Then I'll be very happy to have a debate because it's a result of many years of thinking. And I enjoy listening to people that don't agree with me because it's a journey. I'm just someone that is saying, listen, I'm not speaking about medium-sized states like Brazil is important. Of course it's important. It's obvious. Everybody will say yes. I'm saying that look at the small ones. There are among small ones those who are doing in their optimization of their resources, the way they're running it, they are ahead of everybody in managing their affairs, managing their economy. They are running their economy much better than big states. There's a lot that the big ones can learn from them. And there are not only just examples, okay, they are successful, let's learn from them. They can be sources of future development. I mean, Botswana, Rwanda, even Singapore can be an example for many other African states to make. I think that the fact that Botswana is successful doesn't hurt their neighbors. In fact, the more smart and small and medium-sized states are, the more stable will be the world. I'm just saying they exist, and the world is different. It's not the classical one.
You're very optimistic about the potential future of small, smart states. What are the biggest challenges that small states of that kind are going to face in the near future?
I think the biggest challenge is very simple: to continue being smart. Because the world is dynamic, it never stops. I think one of the human challenges is that you have to live every day. Even with a great victory of capitalism and democracy, with the breakdown of Soviet Union, The same West had to understand that the next day is a new day, and they have to prove again and again that democracy is the best way of living, and challenge or advise or encourage others to take that path. But to take that path, I think that the path for a better life is through evolution. Every and each state has to find out what's their own path. You cannot say, okay, this is my success story, okay? You have to repeat it. I'm Steve Jobs, I'm a genius, okay, this is my story, repeat it and everybody will be a billionaire. No. Every and each time you have to discover something new and the new path. Every and each nation has to find its own way of evolution. It can be rapid evolution. And if you, I like this because I was preaching this all the time. You put our evolution, it becomes rapid evolution. That's the way forward. You have to take your own path. Then you will reach where you are, okay? Because nobody else knows better. Nobody else understands your culture, your history better than yourself, okay? Just copying, just taking if I take the Constitution of Germany and make it Constitution of Armenia, does that mean I'll become the next Germany? That it means that I will start living like in Munich? No. Does it mean that Bavaria will become, Armenian football team will be playing as good as Munich or Bayern Leverkusen? No. I think everybody has to find its own way. And the best way of progressing for a country like Saudi Arabia is not just copying something else, to find their way of changing life, of making women, for example, much more integrated in their life and freer and so on. It's not me or anybody to tell them what to do. They have to find their own way. And that way will be the right one. Imagine France telling 70 years ago to Singapore what to do. There was just a visionary leadership in Singapore that found what was right for them. Again, Armenia copying German constitution doesn't mean that, because our history, the 70 years of Soviet Union, the more than 100 years of Russian Empire, Armenians never lived through capitalism, never had real freedoms. And then jumping into, taking Armenia as a small example is the same with Georgia, with Ukraine, with Russia. So you have to build your evolution based on your history, your culture, your people, and build up your own story rather than just copying others.
Armen Sarkissian, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Pleasure to meet you.
You too.